in the quaint town of Maplewood, where the air was crisp and the pace of life slowly unraveled like the threads of a well-loved quilt. The local hospital, Maplewood General, stood tall and proud, a beacon of hope for many. But beneath its sterile white walls and friendly facade lay a hidden darkness, one that thrived in the shadows of medical records and billing invoices. The community had always trusted the hospital, viewing it not just as a healthcare provider, but as an integral part of their lives. However, an unexpected incident soon shattered that mirage of trust. One rainy evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a tired Dr. Emily Carter returned to her office after a long shift, with her lab coat slightly damp and her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She sat down to review the day's patient files. Among the usual documentation, one particular file caught her eye. It was a billing statement for a patient she didn't recognize. Curiosity piqued. She dug deeper, flipping through the papers. To her astonishment, upon further inspection, she found a string of similar documents, all related to patients listed in the hospital's database who seemed to exist in name only. Frowning, she leaned closer, scrutinizing the details. There was no record of these supposed patients in her memory, nor could she recall any incidents relating to them over the past few months. With every file she examined, her unease grew. Could it be a clerical error, a mere oversight, or was something more sinister at play? The thought danced on the edges of her mind, igniting a flicker of apprehension. As Emily put the documents down, a chill swept over her, not from the cool hospital air, but from the creeping realization that there was an anomaly brewing within the very institution she had devoted her life to. This strange phenomenon held the potential for something much larger than a simple accounting mistake. Driven by her sense of ethics and professionalism, Emily vowed to investigate further. The following day, with determination gleaming in her hazel eyes, she began a discreet inquiry into the hospital's recent billing practices. The first step was to reach out to her colleagues. Surely, they would share her concerns. That day, during the usual morning briefing in the doctor's lounge, Dr. Carter cautiously broached the topic. As she shared her findings, confused glances surrounded her, accompanied by muffled whispers. Some dismissed her worries as paranoia fueled by fatigue, while others exchanged uneasy looks, hinting that they, too, had sensed something amiss. Slowly, Dr. Carter felt a mix of isolation and resolve creeping into her heart. If she was going to uncover the truth, she would need allies. But as night fell over Maplewood, the storm was just gathering strength, and Emily was about to find herself on a path that would challenge not only her career but the very principles the healthcare system was built upon. Little did she know that the battle ahead was not only against unseen adversaries lurking in the hospital's depths, but also against a culture of silence and fear. As she took a deep breath, steeling herself for the journey ahead, a thought echoed in her mind. How far would she go to protect those who were vulnerable, to expose the truth, and to bring justice to a place meant for healing? The stage was set, and the drama was just beginning to unfold. Dr. Emily Carter, a dedicated young physician, walked the familiar halls of Maplewood General Hospital with a sense of purpose and pride. Every day, she donned her white coat as a badge of honor, committed to providing the best care for her patients. With a compassionate heart and an unwavering belief in human dignity, Emily had earned the trust of her colleagues and the community. Her bright eyes sparkled with determination, reflecting her unwavering dedication to the healing profession. However, beneath her calm exterior lay a burgeoning unease. Over the past few months, Emily began to notice subtle changes within the hospital's operations. It started with inconspicuous whispers among the staff and a palpable shift in the way the administration prioritized financial profit over patient care. Emily had always viewed medicine as a noble profession, but the ominous cloud of greed seemed to cast a shadow over Maplewood General. One evening, after wrapping up a long shift, Emily decided to review some patient files to prepare for the next day's rounds. As she delved into the charts, she noticed something unsettling. Certain patients she had never seen or treated had mysteriously been added to the hospital's records. Among them were several names with incomplete or dubious information. Each file vaguely suggested treatments and procedures that seemed inconsistent with standard care protocols. This piqued Emily's curiosity, but she brushed it off, assuming there had been a clerical error. Yet the next day, the feeling of something amiss resurfaced. During her meeting with the billing department, she overheard conversations about unusual insurance claims. But when she inquired further, her questions were met with anxious glances and swift topic changes. The unsettling feeling in her gut transformed into a sense of urgency. Emily realized that these were not just clerical mishaps. They could be something far more sinister. As the days turned into weeks, Emily found herself increasingly drawn to investigate these anomalies. She started examining more files, compiling a list of patients who had no records of visits, treatments, or histories. It was a painstaking process, but every discovered inconsistency sharpened her resolve. Along the way, Emily confided in Rachel, a close colleague and nurse she knew would understand her concerns. Rachel's demeanor shifted from skepticism to intrigue as Emily outlined her findings. "If you're right, this is serious," Rachel said, her brow furrowing with concern. Together, they began to sift through mountains of paperwork, double-checking entries and diligently cross-referencing information. The camaraderie they developed would soon prove invaluable as they braced for the challenges ahead. Despite the growing tension within the hospital and the possibility of retaliation from those in power, Emily's sense of ethics and moral responsibility steered her onward. She couldn't stand idly by while potential fraud tarnished the hospital's integrity and jeopardized patients' trust. Fueled by unwavering determination, Emily vowed to get to the bottom of the situation, not only for her sake, but for the countless individuals relying on the hospital for care. Through every hurdle and setback, Dr. Emily Carter's unwavering spirit became a beacon of hope, the embodiment of a healthcare professional unafraid to challenge the status quo in pursuit of justice and truth in a world that often blurred the lines of right and wrong. Dr. Emily Carter sat alone in her dimly lit office, papers scattered across her desk, illuminated only by the soft glow of her desk lamp. The quiet hum of the hospital echoed around her, a stark contrast to the chaos of the bustling ward just outside the door. On this night, her dedicated spirit had drawn her to search deeper into the hospital's financial records. A series of minor discrepancies had caught her attention over the previous weeks, and her instincts told her there was more to uncover. As she sifted through the endless stream of patient files, a sense of unease crept over her. The numbers seemed inflated, the insurance claims unusually high for a facility of this size. The patterns were unmistakable, claims for treatments rendered to patients that, she discovered, were not on the hospital's roster. Furrowing her brow, she pulled up patient records that had raised her suspicion, initially dismissing them as errors or clerical mistakes. But something felt off. The more she investigated, the more the fragments of information clashed against her reality. Emily's heart raced as she opened a file labeled Mary Johnson, a name she had never heard during her rounds. As she scanned the summary of care rendered, listing extensive procedures, it became increasingly evident that Mary Johnson was a ghost, an individual who had never existed. Flipping through the pages, Emily found multiple similar cases, patients listed with fictitious addresses and non-existent medical histories. The phantom patients became a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a grim conclusion. Someone in the hospital was orchestrating a scheme to profit from these fabricated individuals. She stared at the files, her mind racing. How could such dishonesty occur within the very walls meant to uphold the sanctity of life? Gathering her composure, she picked up the phone and called Rachel, a nurse known for her sharp intuition and unwavering loyalty to her patients. When Rachel arrived, her brow furrowed with concern. "Look at this," Emily urged, laying the papers out before her. "These patients, Rachel, they're not real. It's like they've concocted a whole separate world of billing and insurance claims." Rachel's face hardened as she reviewed the documents. "This isn't just illegal, Emily. It's morally reprehensible. We need to dig deeper. If this pattern has been happening for any amount of time, think of how many people are profiting off the suffering of others." Faced with disbelief, they both understood the magnitude of their findings. They were risking quite a lot. But the thought of patients being exploited in such a callous manner fueled their determination. Fueled by a sense of injustice, they devised a plan to investigate further, determined to expose the truth hidden within the seemingly safe confines of their workplace. As they compiled a list of suspicious claims, Emily felt an unmistakable weight settle on her shoulders. The deeper they delved, the more they realized they might be unearthing a can of worms that could put their careers and safety on the line. Yet this revelation was not one they could ignore. The collective integrity of the hospital, the faith of the town's citizens, and the ethical duty as medical professionals drove them forward. Even if they faced resistance, they would stand united against greed. Knowing the truth must be set free. Emily knew that uncovering the truth would not be easy. The more she delved into the hospital's records, the thicker the web of deceit seemed to become. With every phone call, every file she sorted, her resolve grew stronger. However, it soon became clear that tackling this issue alone would be dangerous and perhaps impossible. That's when she decided to confide in Rachel, a nurse who had been working at the hospital for over 5 years. Rachel was known for her no-nonsense attitude and sharp eye for detail. She had been Emily's ally in many challenging cases, a steadfast friend who knew the ebb and flow of the hospital's operations. Over a cup of lukewarm coffee in the break room, Emily carefully explained her findings to Rachel. "I found patient files with names I've never heard of. Some of them are indexed as admitted, but were never seen in our wards," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Rachel raised her eyebrows, skeptical yet intrigued. "Are you sure? Maybe they were just transferred to another facility?" Emily shook her head. "No, Rachel. I checked. Each file has signatures from attending staff, and there's no record of these patients anywhere. It feels like someone is cooking the books for insurance claims." After a moment of contemplation, Rachel leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing. "If what you're saying is true, we might be looking at something much bigger than we thought. Fraud-like that could have major implications. We need to investigate further," Emily insisted, her heart racing at the thought of what they might unearth. "I can access the digital records, and I need your help to cross-reference them with the physical files. Together, we can find inconsistencies." Rachel nodded, her expression shifting from skepticism to determination. "I'm in. Let's see if we can crack this case wide open." The duo met late at night, avoiding the busy hospital hours. They huddled in a small conference room, eyes glued to their laptops as they navigated through layers of data. Hours passed, and the hospital's fluorescent lights flickered above them. As they dug deeper, patterns began to emerge. The ghost patients seemed to appear around the same time, often corresponding with significant increases in insurance billings. With meticulous attention, Emily and Rachel compiled their findings into spreadsheets, highlighting discrepancies that could no longer be ignored. The evidence began to suggest a systematic approach to the fraud, implicating several administrative staff members alongside Mr. Dawson. The realization that they were up against not just one corrupt individual, but a network of deceit sent chills down Emily's spine. But with each discovery came the weight of danger. Emily's instincts told her that their investigation would not go unnoticed for long. Just as they were piecing together the final fragments of evidence, Rachel received a call from a colleague who warned her to be careful. Rumors were swirling about someone conducting investigations, and it was clear the administration was on high alert. Undeterred but aware of the mounting threats, Emily and Rachel vowed to keep pushing forward. They knew they were getting closer to the truth, but they also understood that exposing this level of corruption could put their careers and their lives at risk. With determination in their hearts and the knowledge of what was at stake, they prepared themselves for the uncharted waters that lay ahead. The fight for justice was just beginning, and they would not back down. As Dr. Emily Carter delved deeper into the murky waters of the hospital's billing practices, the menacing presence of Mr. Dawson became increasingly palpable. The sharp edges of his professional demeanor concealed a malevolence that was as unsettling as it was impressive. Mr. Dawson was the hospital administrator, a man who wielded considerable power and influence, and he was stealthily orchestrating a scheme that would turn the stomach of any ethical medical professional. With slicked back hair and a tailored suit, Mr. Dawson epitomized the image of a successful businessman in the healthcare industry. He had a silver tongue, capable of charming board members and stakeholders alike with promises of improved financial performance and top-tier patient care. Yet behind that polished exterior lurked a heart of greed. He was the puppet master in a web of deceit, where ghost patients, entirely fictitious individuals, were manufactured to inflate the hospital's revenue through fraudulent insurance claims. Emily couldn't help but notice how each day brought with it a new wave of reported patients, many of whom showed no record in the actual wards or clinic files. It was as if Dawson had conjured these clients from thin air, weaving tales of ailments that never were, solely to bolster the hospital's financial standings. Despite his affable nature, it quickly became clear to Emily that he lacked any semblance of compassion for patients. Profit was his only concern. Dawson's accomplices were equally insidious. There was the head of billing, Sarah, who had skillfully transformed the hospital's billing department into a machine that churned out claims for these ghost patients. With an uncanny ability for manipulation, she wielded her knowledge of the healthcare system like a weapon, ensuring that no one questioned the outlandish amounts being claimed. Then there was Mark, the head of admissions, who meticulously edited patient records to ensure that the fabricated files appeared legitimate. This trio, cloaked in their positions of authority, had built a fortress of corruption, and Emily's instinct told her they would do anything to maintain it. As Emily and Rachel began their investigation, they quickly learned the risks they were taking. Whispers of discontent buzzed around the hospital corridors as they scoured through records and interviewed employees. They soon found that Dawson had eyes and ears everywhere. Staff who were once friendly seemed wary, casting furtive glances as they passed by, feigning ignorance, and retreating into the shadows when questions about billing practices arose. It became evident that anyone who dared to challenge Mr. Dawson's authority would find themselves swiftly silenced. Threats began to obscure their path. One evening, as Rachel worked late to analyze the records, Emily received an anonymous message warning her to turn back, insinuating that delving too deep would lead to dire consequences. Dawson's operation was predicated on fear, and it was working. However, the fire of justice ignited within Emily's heart as she contemplated the countless patients who had been robbed of care due to Dawson's avarice. The urgency of their mission and the temptation to expose these misdeeds became more potent with each passing day. Fueled by a reluctant courage and an unwavering belief in truth, Emily resolved that they had to confront Dawson and dismantle this nefarious scheme. She understood that justice would not come easy, however. She was prepared to battle the formidable antithesis of the ethics she fought to uphold. In the murky depths of healthcare corruption, one thing was clear: the stakes had never been higher. As the days passed, an uncomfortable atmosphere settled over the small-town hospital. Dr. Emily Carter felt the weight of her conscience growing, heavier with every interaction she had with her colleagues. The initial excitement of her discovery had transformed into a constant sense of dread. Each time she entered the hospital, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, as if the walls themselves were eavesdropping on her every move. Emily confided in Rachel, the skeptical nurse who had become her ally. They often met in the hospital's dimmed break room, sipping cold coffee while sifting through stacks of patient files that were riddled with discrepancies. Together, they pored over documents, names, dates, and billing codes, trying to weave the threads of deception into a coherent narrative. But the deeper they delved, the more ominous the shadows loomed around them. Rachel, initially hesitant about the whole investigation, was gradually pulled into Emily's fervor. She had once believed in the hospital's mission and was troubled by the thought that it could harbor such corruption. However, she too began experiencing strange occurrences. On a couple of occasions, Rachel had spotted Mr. Dawson, the hospital administrator, lurking around the nurse's station, his expression unreadable. Each time he passed, a shiver ran down her spine, and she felt a prick of fear. It was as if he could sense they were onto him. One night, while working late shifts, Emily returned to her office only to find her files scattered across the floor. Among them lay evidence that she had meticulously gathered, a list of phantom patients and the insurance claims connected to them. Panic surged through her. Had someone discovered her investigation? Someone was watching, and the creeping threats were no longer a distant concern. As the investigation progressed, subtle indications of intimidation began to manifest. On numerous occasions, Emily received anonymous notes slipped under her office door, taunting her inquiries and reminding her of the consequences of meddling in affairs far beyond her scope. "Stop looking where you don't belong," read one chilling message. A bouquet of wilted flowers appeared on her desk one morning, each one devoid of life, a stark warning cloaked in irony. Even Rachel sensed the tension. New protocols were suddenly established within the hospital, designed to clamp down on unusual behavior. Gossip had spread among the staff, with whispers hinting that those who dug too deep would find themselves facing accidents or unexpected job terminations. The very air felt electric, pregnant with unspeakable pressure and unspoken threats. Their resolve, however, only hardened in the face of fear. Emily and Rachel knew that they were not merely hunting down a fraud. They were standing against a system that prioritized profit over patient care, a reality that demanded attention. They made a pact to protect one another, bolstering their courage amidst the rising tension, even if the voices around them grew louder in discouragement. Together, they meticulously documented every detail. With each passing day, Emily felt herself change. A fierce warrior emerged from within her. This was no longer just about confronting corruption. It was about taking a stand for the integrity of healthcare. As they prepared to confront the looming confrontation with Mr. Dawson, Emily felt a fire ignite within her, a certainty that no secret could remain hidden forever. They were on the brink of unearthing the truth, and despite the shadows closing in, they were ready to shine a light. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the hospital's sterile hallways, a palpable tension filled the air. Dr. Emily Carter knew that time was running out. Each day that passed felt like a countdown, with the ghost patients lurking in the shadows of the hospital's records, waiting to be exposed. Armed with meticulously gathered evidence, Emily prepared herself for the biggest confrontation of her career. The internal meeting promised to be a crucial turning point. The hospital board must hear the truth. The room was stuffy with the arrogance of high-ranking officials. Emily stepped inside, flanked by her ally, Nurse Rachel, who had been an invaluable partner in this investigation. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and Emily could sense the eyes of the board members scrutinizing her every move. The echoing silence was deafening as she approached the podium, clutching a stack of documents that felt heavier than the weight of the truth they carried. "Thank you for allowing me this opportunity," Emily began, her voice steady despite the chaos of emotions battling within her. "I come before you not just as a physician, but as a concerned member of this healthcare community, driven by ethics and the true mission of healing." She took a deep breath, looking from face to face, until her gaze settled on Mr. Dawson, who sat at the head of the table with a smirk plastered on his face. As she clicked through her presentation slides, the atmosphere shifted. The projected screen showed irrefutable evidence, records of non-existent patients, falsified billing statements, and even internal communications that revealed the depth of the corruption. Gasps filled the room, but Mr. Dawson maintained his composure, a facade of confidence that concealed fear. "I present to you the data showing a suspicious spike in claims submitted to insurance providers, claims related to patients who have no medical history, no family, no existence," Emily said, her voice rising with conviction. "This is not merely an anomaly. It is evidence of a systematic fraud designed to exploit both the insurance system and the very patients we claim to serve." Rachel stepped up beside Emily, her voice firm as she addressed the board. "We put our lives into this profession to care for others, and what we've discovered is a betrayal of that trust. Countless lives may have been affected due to your negligence in allowing such practices to flourish." Those words hit hard. The reality of their actions echoed in the room. There was no denying the evidence laid bare before them. The board members exchanged nervous glances, realizing they were complicit in the silence. Facing Mr. Dawson, Emily steeled herself, the last piece of her heart racing in defiance against the corruption that had blossomed unchecked. "If we cannot hold ourselves accountable, How can we expect our community to trust us with their health? We have a choice to make today, to either turn a blind eye or act in the name of integrity. A moment of silence fell over the room before chaos erupted, arguments, shouting, and accusations flying. Emily's heart raced as the weight of her words began to sink in. The fight against the darkness that had permeated the hospital had begun, and she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. With the truth finally exposed, the battle for justice was just beginning. But for now, Emily knew she had ignited a crucial conversation. The fight against corruption was far from over, but it had taken the first step toward restoring dignity to their profession. In the heat of a crisis, Dr. Emily Carter felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins as she entered the boardroom of the small-town hospital, the epicenter of her recent investigation into the shadowy world of ghost patients. The air was thick with tension. Whispers of her recent findings had already reached the ears of the hospital board, and they were now waiting for her to present the evidence that could change everything. As she stood before an array of stern faces, the gravity of her mission weighed heavily on her shoulders. Mr. Dawson, the hospital administrator, sat at the head of the table, exuding an air of confidence that masked his anxiety. He had built an empire on deceit, one that exploited vulnerable patients and enriched his own pockets. Emily had watched him weave a delicate web of lies, and now it was time to cut through the fabric of his deception. Taking a deep breath, Emily began her presentation, displaying the documents she and Nurse Rachel had painstakingly gathered over the last few weeks. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice unwavering, "what you are about to see is not just a series of numbers and names. These are lives that have been fabricated purely for profit." She clicked through the slides, revealing one shocking case after another. Patient files adorned with medical histories that never existed, appointments that never took place, and insurance claims that lined the pockets of corrupt individuals. Gasps echoed throughout the room as the enormity of the situation unfolded. Emily's heart raced as she sensed the tide beginning to shift in her favor. "These ghost patients are not merely statistical anomalies," she continued. "They represent a fundamental breach of trust, a betrayal of the oath we took as healthcare providers. We are meant to heal, not exploit." Murmurings of disbelief and outrage rippled through the assembled members. Mr. Dawson attempted to regain control, but the mounting evidence was undeniable. "This is preposterous," he interjected, desperation seeping into his voice. "You have no proof that these files are anything but errors." But Emily was ready. She projected a slide featuring a timeline of rising insurance claims correlating directly with the introduction of the ghost patient scheme. "We have strong evidence of this practice dating back several years," she declared, her confidence bolstered by the truth. "With your blessing, I contacted state health services and shared our findings. They are prepared to audit our records immediately if we don't take action ourselves." The board members exchanged glances, some visibly shaken by the implications of her words. Moments later, an elderly board member, her hands trembling with age and integrity, spoke up. "Emily, you've opened our eyes today. We cannot stand by and let this happen. We owe it to our community and to every patient who has come through these doors." As conversations erupted, a palpable shift in sentiment became apparent. The water cooler gossip had transformed into a call for accountability. With mounting momentum behind her, Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. Together with Rachel, they had courageously stepped into the light and exposed the dark underbelly of a corrupt system. In the aftermath of Emily's heartfelt presentation, legal actions were initiated against Mr. Dawson and his accomplices. Investigations revealed far-reaching consequences, protecting community interests and restoring integrity to the hospital. As trust was rebuilt within the community, Emily stood tall, her heart swelling with pride. She knew the battle was won, but the war against corruption in healthcare would continue, and she was ready to lead the charge. In a world where the healthcare system should embody trust, compassion, and healing, the story of Dr. Emily Carter serves as a poignant reminder of the profound impact that honesty and ethics have on the lives of individuals and the communities they serve. As Emily courageously unveiled the truth behind the ghost patient files at her small-town hospital, she not only exposed the insidious greed lurking within the halls of medical care, but also ignited a conversation about the dire consequences of corruption. The healthcare system, meant to be a sanctuary for those seeking medical attention, is often plagued by systemic issues that can lead to unethical practices. When profit becomes the priority, patients suffer. Emily's discovery of fictitious patients created by the corrupt hospital administrator, Mr. Dawson, symbolizes a much larger issue within the industry, an alarming trend of prioritizing financial gain over patient well-being. This reflection emphasizes that while healthcare professionals are bound by an oath to do no harm, unscrupulous individuals can distort this noble promise through deceitful actions. The tension escalates as Emily and her ally, Nurse Rachel, confront the realities of a system overshadowed by greed. Their journey is not just one of personal bravery, but a collective struggle against a pervasive culture that can flourish when ethical standards are neglected. The stakes are raised, sparking a profound discourse on the necessity for transparency, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to ethical practices in healthcare. One of the story's striking elements is the juxtaposition between Emily's integrity and the malevolence exhibited by Mr. Dawson. While Emily embodies the qualities of a dedicated physician, striving to ensure her patients receive the care they deserve, Dawson's actions reflect the corrupting influence of greed. This dichotomy serves as a crucial reminder that individuals within the system have the power to perpetuate kindness or perpetrate harm. The resolution of the story showcases the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for one's beliefs, even when faced with overwhelming opposition. Moreover, as the dust settles on the scandal, the aftermath leaves a lasting impact not only on the hospital but also on the wider community. The exposure of fraud leads to legal actions and a restoration of integrity, shedding light on the necessity of ethical guidelines and oversight in healthcare practices. The community, now aware of the importance of vigilance, comes together to advocate for reforms, promoting a culture that values transparency and accountability. The moral reflection concludes with a clarion call, urging audiences to recognize their role in fostering ethical practices within the healthcare system. It implores individuals to advocate for change, reminding them that the fight for transparency does not rest solely on the shoulders of brave individuals like Emily. It requires collective action and a commitment from society as a whole. Through this engaging narrative, viewers are encouraged to remain vigilant, challenge the status quo, and demand accountability, ensuring that the sanctity of healthcare is preserved for generations to come. As the dust settled on the shocking revelations at the hospital, Dr. Emily Carter stood at the forefront of a movement that not only restored integrity to her workplace, but also ignited a broader conversation about ethics within the healthcare system. The community, once shrouded in ignorance about the dark underbelly of their local hospital, now rallied behind her. People began to understand that healthcare is not merely a business. It is a sanctuary of healing and trust where lives are at stake. With Mr. Dawson's practices exposed, an air of accountability swept through the hospital. Every staff member experienced a renewed sense of purpose and dedication, reaffirming their commitment to care for patients genuinely and compassionately. Still, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. The journey toward transparency and ethical practice in healthcare was far from over and still required vigilance from both employees and community members. The moral of Emily's story resonates deeply. True integrity in healthcare is not just about transparent practices, but also about the courage of individuals willing to stand up against wrongdoing. Whenever we notice something amiss, whether in our workplaces or communities, we must voice our concerns. It is often easier to remain silent for fear of retaliation, but in this silence, we inadvertently become enablers of corruption. The fight for justice requires not only the bravery of a few, but the collective courage of many. As the community began discussions surrounding patient rights and the ethics of healthcare, Emily encouraged everyone to ask pertinent questions. Are the healthcare providers they trust genuinely serving their interests? Are they aware of the signs of fraudulent activity that could potentially harm not just one patient but entire communities? It is essential for everyone to stay informed and engaged in the system that governs their health and well-being. So, dear viewers, this is where we turn to you. What are your thoughts on the story of Dr. Emily Carter? Have you ever witnessed similar situations in your own community? We believe that stories have the power to ignite action, and your voice is a vital part of that change. We invite you to share your feelings in the comments below. Every opinion matters and can pave the way for positive change. Furthermore, if you found this story compelling and inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more impactful narratives that tackle social issues and share invaluable moral lessons. With each story, we strive to foster awareness and inspire action, reminding us all to take a stand against corruption and advocate for a system that upholds integrity and care. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to sharing more stories that challenge and engage you. Together, let's continue to shed light on the hidden corners of life that require our attention and compassion, ensuring that our collective voice remains a powerful force for good in the world.